Hey everyone, welcome back. So earlier on this month, President Trump laid out his plans to send all Americans, or certain Americans at least, a $2,000 stimulus check based on tariff revenue being brought in. He also laid out who more than likely would be eligible to receive these payments. So in today's video, we are going to be covering everything that you need to know. But before we go ahead and dive into it for today, if you would like to receive up to $200 in free stock or $200 in free cash, in a pinned comment below, I will be leaving a link to Robinhood. All you have to do is once you click on that link is just sign up for a free account and then simply link your bank account. You do not even have to make an opening deposit. At that point in time, Robinhood will be sending you one free stock worth all the way up to $200. And if you really just have the cash, all you have to do is once you receive the free stock is just sell it for what it's worth and then transfer the cash value right back to your bank account. Okay, so diving right into it for today. So once again, earlier on this month, President Trump laid out his plan to send all Americans, or at least most Americans, a stimulus check of $2,000. This money would be based off the tariff revenue brought into the country, mostly because these tariffs have not really been all that popular among all Americans. So maybe they were thinking that, perhaps sending a check of $2,000 so at least Americans feel like they're getting something back from all these tariffs might be helpful as far as polling goes. Now, he also laid out who more than likely would be eligible to receive these checks based on income levels. So in today's video, we are going to be covering that, plus another plan that he had before entering office and actually after entering office that perhaps would have been even better than these $2,000 checks. We're going to be covering that as well, and why that may actually be a lot less realistic to take place than these $2,000 checks. But diving right into this today, this article here from PBS, I say Trump has promised to give Americans $2,000 payments from tariff dividends. So how seriously should people take his pledge? Experts urge caution. So tariffs are projected to generate well below trillions of dollars a year, as Trump claims, making it harder to pay each person $2,000. And the administration already said it would use the tariff revenue to either pay for existing tax cuts or to reduce the federal debt. Trump's post came days after the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments about the legality of his tariff policy. The justices are weighing whether Trump has the power to unilaterally impose tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. If the justices rule against Trump, which actually right now seems pretty likely that they will, much of the expected future tariff revenue would not materialize. So of course, if the judges do rule against Trump, then this $2,000 check is going to completely go out the window altogether. So a lot of this hinges on whether or not the justices, the U.S. Supreme Court justices, are going to side with Trump or whether they are going to side against Trump. We will have to wait and see, but leave your thoughts and comments below. How do you think the Supreme Court justices are going to rule on this issue? Now, they also mention here, as far as who all would qualify, more than likely the administration has published no plans for the tariff dividends. And in a November 9th ABC News interview, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said he hadn't spoken to Trump about giving Americans a dividend payment. Details about a potential payment have been limited to Truth Social posts. Trump said that everyone, excluding high-income people, would get the money, but did not explain who qualifies as high income. He also didn't say whether children would receive the payment. So pretty much everyone except high income. Now, if we go off just based off of that, I would assume it's probably going to be the same people who received the checks back in 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic. For that, it was $75,000 for individuals and $150,000 for married couples. And I believe it was $112,500 for a head of household. Now, if you earn more than those amounts, so for example, if you earn like $85,000 as an individual, you still received a check, but it was reduced a little bit. It was like 5% less for every like $100 that you earn above those amounts. So if you received more than $75,000 as an individual, you might still receive a check, the $2,000 check, but it would be a little bit less than that amount. I would assume it would be pretty close to those amounts, perhaps adjusted for inflation. So whatever the inflation for income would be. If we compare, $75,000, earning $75,000 back in 2020 and 2021, and then adjusting that upwards a little bit, considering that we are now in 2025 and earning $75,000 back in 2020, 2021 is not going to be the same as earning $75,000 in 2025. Now, I also mentioned here that in the November 10th Truth Social post, Trump said his administration would first pay $2,000 to low and middle income USA citizens and then use the remaining tariff revenues to substantially pay down national debt. Trump hasn't said what form the payments might take, but hasn't said the dividend could come in lots of forms in lots of ways. It could be the tax decreases that we are seeing on the president's agenda. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of auto loans. So, those are substantial deductions, and analysts say that it's a stretch to rebrand an already promised tax cut as a new dividend. So if you're going to come out and say, we're going to send Americans $2,000 checks, and then you're later coming out and saying, well, we're actually just saving you $2,000 on taxes because you're no longer paying taxes on overtime, you're no longer paying taxes on tips, and you're also having that extra $6,000 deduction when it comes to your Social Security benefits. Not exactly the same as receiving just like a flat fee, a flat $2,000 check. Plus, a lot of Americans aren't receiving, extra money off of overtime or tips. They're not actually receiving any benefit, from these, tax deductions that were included in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So if they are not going to send $2,000 checks, I think that would be a big letdown among most Americans. Now, also, Erica York, the Tax Foundation's Vice President of Federal Tax Policy, estimated in a November 9th X post that a $2,000 tariff dividend for each person earning under $100,000 would equal 150 million adult recipients. That would cost nearly $300 billion, York calculated, or more if children qualified. That's more than the tariffs have raised so far, she said. And the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget projected that Trump's proposal could cost $600 billion, depending on how it's structured. So obviously there's a math problem here. If it's going to cost $300 billion to send these checks out to Americans, but we've only brought in $200 billion, obviously we have not brought in enough money from these tariffs to be able to pay out everyone $2,000 checks, unless of course they're counting on future revenues brought in, perhaps next year in 2026, maybe the following year in 2027. But still, there might be a mathematical error there, and we certainly don't have enough money to pay everyone $2,000 checks right now, plus substantially pay down our national debt, which right now is right around $38 trillion. Now, before entering office and actually after entering office, Trump had another idea, which actually would have been a lot better, for a lot of folks still in the workforce at least, where he would actually be eliminating income taxes for Americans earning under $150,000 per year. So for an American earning $100,000 per year, if they're not having to pay taxes on any of that money, that's going to be a lot more in savings than a flat $2,000 check. But obviously this is also a lot more realistic. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this idea. So according to Lednick's interview with CBS News, Trump's tax policy goal is to remove federal income taxes for individuals earning under $150,000 annually. Additional proposals in the discussion include eliminating taxes on Social Security benefits, exempting overtime pay and tips from income taxation, and extending or making permanent the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Now, he's already done all that. He did not eliminate taxes altogether on Social Security benefits, but he did add an extra deduction for $6,000 for individuals and $12,000 for married couples. So he's already carried out a lot of those promises, but he has not yet carried out his promise to eliminate altogether income tax on money under $150,000 per year. And of course, that would be much better than having a $2,000 stimulus check. You'd be getting more than $2,000, especially those earning closer to the $150,000 mark. Now you can see up on the screen here, like census data on U.S. income distribution back in 2023, the majority of Americans earn below $150,000. There would only be around 25% of Americans that would not be benefiting from this. As you can see, 9.5% of Americans earn between $150,000 and $199,999. And then 14.4% of Americans earn $200,000 and above. The rest of Americans would benefit from this. And of course, the closer that you earn to $150,000, the more that you would benefit from this. But also, according to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, ending taxes below $150,000 would lose 10 to $15 trillion. So it would also be a huge issue, but right now we're $38 trillion in debt. And if we're not going to be bringing in enough tax revenue, that's going to cause our debt to spiral even more. So I'm not really sure how exactly they're going to get that done. They also did not include that in the one big beautiful bill, but these $2,000 checks might still be on the table. We will have to wait and see what happens to them. With that said, leave your thoughts and comments below. Do you personally expect that Trump is going to find a way to get this done? Send out $2,000 checks at some point in the middle of next year, 2026? Leave your thoughts and comments below. But that's all we have for today's video, and I will see you in the next one.